I think California is basically at almost 50% of those above 16 vaccinated.
Yeah, at least we got one. Aaron Hardman saying hi. All right, let's keep going here. Yeah, so most everybody comes in the next 5 minutes on these things.
All right, well, we are live in the YouTube universe, whatever that means there. So good morning, everyone. Here's a link to the YouTube if anyone wants to go ahead and share it out there. So those of us that weren't able to make it are still able to watch. I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen. Okay.
Here we go.
It's not letting me there.
Well, it was on for a little bit. Then
it wasn't recognizing this one. There you go. Now you can see everything.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys see the bottom bar on my screen? Well, either way, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone here today to CleanStart's Perspectives with Erik Stokes, Chief of Energy Development and Market Facilitation at the California Energy Commission. I am Thomas Hall, the Executive Director of CleanStart, and we help accelerate clean tech in the greater Sacramento area. We also work and support companies that are outside of that. In these times of COVID, where everything's virtual, we try to provide as much support as we can to early stage companies trying to make a difference with their clean technology. These perspectives are brought to us by PEM and Sac State. PEM Motion is working with the California Mobility Center to help accelerate early stage manufacturing companies and get their manufacturing line set up. They have specifically bought my coffee, which, because they're so efficient, they deliver it to me in monsters. I don't think there's a specific way they want to deliver it. That's just how I'm taking it. All right. Sorry here, I'm just used to having a couple screens because I'm give me 1 second here. I hear someone vacuuming. Okay, thank you. All right, so as we mentioned, the CleanStart Perspectives are also brought to you by Sac State, which you can get support of with your early stage company from Cameron Law, Executive Director of the Carlson Center, Kayvon Shafizada, Assistant Dean and Interim Dean at the College of Engineering and Computer Science, and Assistant Dean Jawa at the College of Engineering and Computer Science. Please support the work that we're doing here at CleanStart. If you like them, please support us by donating through our PayPal. We've had a lot of support this year from several of you out there, and we're very grateful for it. And again, I want to recognize PEM Motion for the first cup of coffee that they got me today. We have several upcoming events, including CleanStart Perspectives with Lloyd Lobo and Mark Trexler later this week and next week. We also have a Clean Tech meetup around early stage companies that have recently got investment. So that'll be exciting to hear about their journey on it. And we have another Clean Tech Perspectives later the following month. So stay connected, sign up with our mailing list, and pay attention because there's always exciting things happening, just like SMUD's zero carbon by 2030 or the EPIC funding report, which we're going to hear a little bit probably more about today from Erik Stokes. All right. And again, I'm Thomas Hall, Executive Director of CleanStart, and I would like to welcome Erik Stokes of the Energy Development and Facilitation Office at the CEC. And Erik, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and let you take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me this morning. I'm just going to bring up a presentation really quick just to kind of walk through some slides. If I can find it. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, for some reason, Zoom doesn't want to bring up the power deck right now.
Well, at least it's not just me this morning.
No, definitely not just you.
We should get Pam to buy you some coffee too.
All right, let's see if that works better this time. All right, here we go. So hopefully everyone can see the slides on the screen now.
We see a presenter view with the note sides.
Okay, let's see. How about now?
Still got notes.
Still got notes.
So it's that, that little symbol down at the bottom. That looks like a podium or something.
Yeah, keep hitting it. Is that any better now?
Yeah.
No.
All you need to do here is switch up in the upper left. If you go to display settings, that little drop, you can switch the presenter and slide view, and in the currently displayed.
Okay, is that a Zoom feature?
No, that's
that
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. Got it. Let me try that. Sorry.
Yeah, from this screen right here, there's a little drop down in the upper left. Oh, yeah. If you go back, if you re-click the present slides.
Sorry.
It's not happening.
Well, you can always share your slides with us after, and I can put the slides into the
Yeah.
video.
And hopefully, like I said, there's some kind of small print, so I'm not sure why it's showing the slide view, but we'll go and just kind of.
Can't
It
you just
should
click
be
the
the
slideshow button?
Which slides is showing up on your? It should be kind of the opening slide.
It's the opening slide and next
Okay.
slide. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just well, I'll share these after so everyone can look through them.
I think you can fix it, honestly. Like you see at the very top, it says show taskbar, display settings, and then there's one other thing that says end slideshow. You see that above the slides?
Above the slides. This is on.
I think we
It's all
should just
good.
go with the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so good morning, everyone. As Thomas mentioned, my name is Erik Stokes. I'm with the California Energy Commission, specifically in the Energy Research and Development Division. And I was going to use today to talk a little bit of our R&D programs, and probably more than normally get into some of the nuts and bolts. There's some unique things about our R&D programs, some nuances to them that I think are really important for those that are thinking about applying or participating in some of these programs. I like to start off with this slide because I think it really kind of sets the stage for what we're trying to do on the public R&D, on the R&D front. We kind of rewind back to 2008. There was a lot of excitement around clean tech, especially from the venture capital sector. They thought they would be able to take a lot of things they'd done with Twitter and Facebook and apply that towards the clean tech sector. At the same time, the Obama administration came into office and they put a significant investment into clean energy through the RS stimulus packages. They also funded ARPA-E for the first time in that agency's history. So there was a lot of interest. There was a lot of excitement. We kind of fast forward to 2013 and venture capital pretty much dropped completely out of clean energy. There was still some clean energy investment deals going on in software related innovations, but the types of physical technologies, especially in the earlier stages, there just wasn't much venture capital funding going towards. And big reason for this is these VCs kind of learned the hard way that your more physical technologies, they just don't follow the same path to commercialization that software technologies do. They have longer timeframes to get to commercialization. They're also much more capital intensive, and they just don't quite fit that venture capital model. The same time this was going on, we were actually scaling up kind of our flagship R&D program called the EPIC program. And the way public R&D programs work is, we're not trying to fund the whole innovation development pipeline with new technologies. We're really trying to target kind of these gaps where the private sector isn't investing in these technologies. So these are also called the valleys of death. And so, part of the challenge we had was, it really was one big valley of death. They kind of talk about these individual valleys of death, but in probably reality, and I think for all of those on your end, there are startup companies, as you know, it's you try to just cobble together all these amounts of funding, hopefully most of them non-dilutive, to get to a stage where you're at a certain level of scale and can start to attract some level of private sector investment. So we have two main R&D programs within the commission. One of the things about both of these programs is the funding source comes from surcharges on utility bills. So on the electricity side, we have a program called the Electric Program Investment Charge. And this is a surcharge on electric ratepayers in Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric territory. And on the gas side, this is a surcharge for natural gas ratepayers that are in either SoCal Gas, PG&E, or San Diego Gas and Electric territory. So kind of some of the nuance there. So if you're a SMUD customer, you don't pay into the EPIC surcharge since you're not a ratepayer of one of the investor-owned utilities. The funding source is critical because to a certain degree, it determines in the R&D programs what we fund and maybe what we don't always fund. It also determines sometimes where we have to do demonstration sites. So on our EPIC program, because the funding comes from investor-owned utility ratepayers, we don't do demonstration sites in publicly owned utility service territories such as SMUD or LADWP. Kind of the logic, the thought process behind that is because these programs are funded by investor-owned ratepayers, the benefits need to primarily accrue back to those ratepayers. They are kind of nuanced within these programs, as you can see from the funding breakdown. We don't do a ton around transportation R&D. We do some work on the EPIC side around transportation electrification. Really, it's that intersection between the vehicle and the grid. And how do we start to, as transportation electrification becomes more prolific across the state, how do we make sure that that load or that storage in these vehicles is helping optimize the grid and instead of contributing towards future grid challenges. And then on the gas side, we've had a pretty large portfolio around trying to scale up natural gas vehicles, specifically around the medium and heavy duty sector. And these, are renewable natural gas vehicles that can displace diesel and petroleum based vehicles in that sector. This is just kind of the breakdown since I believe it is 2000. On the EPIC side, the program began around 2012, and on the gas side, it started in 2004. So this is just kind of the breakdown of how we kind of bucket our various investment topics and where we put that money. On the EPIC side, it's about $150 million in new funding each year, and we kind of organize it into kind of these 6 categories on the right. Now recognize that a lot of the technologies we fund might hit on multiple of these topics. For example, under resiliency and safety, we've done a lot of work on microgrids, and microgrids are also a tool to help support kind of grid decarbonization, decentralization as well. The entrepreneurial ecosystem, it's kind of our program. It's really kind of an accelerated pathway for startup companies where we provide direct funding support, starting with our CalSeed program. And then we kind of stage gate them through kind of a series of programs leading up to what we call our ramp program. And that's really where we help startup companies scale up to kind of their pilot production line in California. And then kind of along that journey, we have a series of incubator accelerator programs, including CleanStart, that make sure startup companies have access to the right resources, avoid a lot of the common pitfalls that we've seen in the prior years. So moving on to the next slide. So these are just some of the benefits, some of our kind of higher level benefits from these programs. As I mentioned in kind of the first slide, one of the key metrics, we really use is private follow-on funding. Just given the fact that, like I said, the vision of public funding is really to address those gaps and get these technologies to a stage where they can attract private sector follow-on funding. Under our EPIC program to date, private companies, companies that have received EPIC support have gone on to raise over $3.5 billion. We talk quite a bit with private sector investors. One of the things that they always like to see is public funding. It helps. They don't have the resources to really validate a lot of these technologies and do that type of due diligence. So it's always something they really look at to see if a company's been successful with a private award when they decide if they're going to make an investment. On the gas side, this program, we've seen over $4.4 billion. There's been some companies like View that have been really successful in this program, and this program dates back quite a bit longer, which is probably why the follow-on investments quite a bit larger. Also, in recent years, starting I'd say back to probably about 2013, 2014, diversity and equity has really become a policy priority. Our clean energy programs and even in our R&D programs, one of the metrics we really look at is for the demonstration deployment projects. These are the projects where we're demonstrating technologies in real world environments. The state legislature has directed a minimum amount of those funds to go to projects that are in an under-resourced community. That includes a Cal virus-free community, a low-income community. It also includes tribal communities. So on our EPIC side, 68% of our funds, our tech demonstration deployment funds, have gone to under-resourced communities. And on the gas side, it's about the same. It's about 65%. And it's just important. One of the things we really try to do is make sure we have kind of a geographic distribution of our technology demonstrations for a number of reasons. One is there's so much local learning that happens when you start to do these demonstrations. And, it's not just the technology developers, it's all the other businesses that are responsible for helping deploy these technologies. And, having that learning, basically diffuse from these projects is really critical. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the CEC funding lifecycle within our R&D grant program. So for us, it really starts off with the state's energy policies. One of the things, kind of our primary charter is really to take stock of what the state's clean energy policies are, and really to think about what those technology advancements and research is needed to help realize those, and then to go support those advancements. So, we always start with our state energy policies, and kind of the big one is the SB 100. This is kind of putting the state on a path to completely decarbonize the electricity sector by 2045. A few months ago, the California Energy Commission, along with the California ISO and the CPUC, kind of issued the first analysis on this kind of statute, and really trying to kind of plan out how we're going to achieve this goal of 100% renewable electricity grid. In addition, the commission leads what's called the Integrated Energy Policy Report. So every 2 years, we put together a report that outlines some of the state's energy challenges, as well as provides policy recommendations to the state legislature and the governor's office. So that's always our foundation. And then what we do is, with our EPIC program and our gas program, we create what's called an investment plan, but sometimes it's also called a budget plan. Depending on the program, this can be a 1-year plan or it can be a 5-year plan. And it really lays out the investments we propose to make over kind of a collection period. We're right in the middle of developing our next, and what this will be a 4-year investment plan for the EPIC program, covering the 2021 through the 2025 timeframe. And when we develop these investment plans or budget plans, we really do this through a pretty extensive stakeholder process and really trying to get input on what should be included in this plan. Last week, we kind of kicked off our EPIC investment plan development process with a big event to hear from kind of under-resourced communities as to what they feel should be included in the plan. And then we'll hold a series of workshops over the coming months that'll be a little more topic specific to get additional information, to get additional input on what people feel should be the priorities of the plan and what should be included in the plan. And so at the end of the slides, I have a link to that process. Once we develop an investment plan or a budget plan, it goes through a series of approvals, starting with the California Energy Commission. So our commissioners will vote on the plan. And if they adopt the plan, then we submit it to the CPUC. One of the unique things around the EPIC program is the CEC is one of 4 administrators of the EPIC program, along with the 3 investor-owned utilities. So each of them also submits an investment plan to the CPUC, and then there's some additional steps that the CPUC goes through before they approve the plan. And so then after we have an approved plan, and in this investment plan, we have like a series of funding topics or funding initiatives, and we turn those into competitive solicitations. Sometimes within our competitive solicitations, we'll try to get additional information. Sometimes we'll hold a scoping workshop to really kind of drill down or to get more stakeholder input, or we'll issue a kind of a request for information. And those are all done through a public process or a public format. And then after we got that information, we release a solicitation. And then kind of the next step is the selection of proposals and projects that we propose to fund from that solicitation. These projects typically last anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And over that time, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of results from those projects, and not only helping advance the technologies, but a lot of those results then kind of inform kind of our future energy policies. So I want to I talked a little bit about this, just kind of how to engage in our various processes. So for state energy policy, as I mentioned, we're in the middle of what we call our integrated energy policy report. And there's a link on our website and, on how people can be involved on that. And kind of in this integrated energy policy report, we kind of identify what are some of the near-term issues and priorities for the state. And then that plan is developed and adopted around the December timeframe. We also have the SB 100, which is going to be a continuing analysis on how we, as I mentioned earlier, how we start to realize the 2045 goals. There was some really the first part of this analysis really focused on the supply side and the types of generation and storage we're going to need for those goals. I think one of the challenges they really identified is just the build rates that we're going to need in the future years. I mean, we're going to need to see record-setting levels of renewable generation installation as well as storage installation like we've never seen before. And these are important for an R&D program because these are challenges that we're looking for technology advancements to help address. As I mentioned, we're in the middle of our EPIC 4 investment plan development process. The links below, and we've had one workshop already. We'll probably be having several more as we get input with a goal of having a draft plan presented to the public around the September timeframe, and then hopefully will be voted on around the October timeframe. And I touched about this briefly is, even after the investment plan is adopted, which can be a pretty long process, sometimes we'll still try to get more information to help scope our solicitations, and these can happen through scoping workshops, through requests for comments on solicitations. And then once that solicitation is released, for every solicitation, we have what's called a pre-application workshop. And this is an opportunity for stakeholders, for applicants to come and kind of ask questions, get more information on the specifics of the solicitation. And then, as far as, one of the key benefits of a public R&D program is, all the information that's, basically doesn't hurt an applicant or recipient's competitive advantage, we share so that future R&D efforts and future deployment efforts can really build on what's been learned. And at the CEC, we really try to make sure that that information is shared and disseminated broadly. One of the ways we do that is through a large annual symposium that will tentatively scheduled for October this year. We've also stood up what we're calling these virtual innovation tours. These are tours where we're really trying to leverage the virtual formats and have various technologies and recipients or startup companies, kind of showcase their technologies. We held one back in March that had an ag tech focus, and we just announced yesterday one on June 16th, and that will basically showcase technology solutions that can improve grid reliability. There'll be 4 kind of breakout sessions, one focused on energy storage and some of the recent advancements in energy storage, especially alternatives to lithium ion that can provide much longer storage duration than kind of the typical 4 to 8 hours that lithium ion provides. We're looking at technologies that can provide 20 and even 100 hours of energy storage. We'll also look at kind of the role of buildings in being able to provide additional flexibility to the grid. And this is also referred to as demand response, but all these various loads, and I think an extension of that, kind of the solar and storage behind the meter, and how we kind of tap into that flexibility in these buildings to better support grid reliability. We also have a session on microgrids and virtual power plants. When we had some grid reliability challenges last year, we called on some of the microgrids that the CECs funded across the state to help support reliability by kind of dropping some of the load on their end and using powering their critical services from some of the solar and storage, and not drawing as much from the larger grid. And then the last session will focus on vehicle grid integration and really the potential role for electric vehicles to support grid reliability. So on top of kind of the more more event type structures to really disseminate information, we are also we have a project database, and we're actually in the middle of revamping that. It's also going to be on the Energize Innovation site that showcases all the projects we funded, as well as the innovation partners on each project, and provides a lot of information about those. And then kind of the last way I think we see a lot of people connecting is through our Empower Innovation website. This is a place for people to learn about all the various funding opportunities, not just through the CEC, but other state agencies, as well as the Department of Energy. More importantly, it's also become a place where people can partner on proposals for a solicitation. As I mentioned earlier, there's a big focus on making sure that these technologies, really reach under-resourced communities. And so this website's a way to help, try to bridge that gap and to really help facilitate some of those partnerships. So with that, I'll open up to, or Thomas, did you want to go to questions, or I'll leave it to?
Yeah, thank you. First round of applause for that. An excellent presentation on it. And I think, Gary, did you have a first question?
Sure. I didn't hear a mention, Eric, among the things that you're funding, CalSeed. This is a program that's been very important to a number of our local startups because it's given them that very critical first dollar to prove a concept, and then for some go on to a prototype development. Do you see the CalSeed program continuing with EPIC funding?
Yeah, we do. So good question. So we're in the middle of, so the CalSeed funding. So next month, I'll just take a step back. Several years ago, we established the CalSeed program as long as what we call the innovation clusters. And that was the foundation for our entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're going to be reauthorizing additional funding for all 5 of those programs, the 4 innovation clusters, as well as CalSeed. That's expected to happen in June. So we're kind of working on parallel tracks to get the programs reauthorized as well as to get the next CalSeed solicitation out. I'll just say, CalSeed is a subset of the EPIC program. We're also creating a CalSeed program on the gas side, whose primary focus is going to be on, kind of low carbon alternatives to natural gas. So will be a big focus on hydrogen. We're still kind of scoping out some of the other technologies that will fall under that. I could see, possibly solar thermal for industrial process heating, maybe some other technology topics that would be under that. So, really trying to fill some gaps in some technologies that we haven't been able to do under the EPIC funded CalSeed version.
And then how about RAMP? Is that going to be an annual program? I think you've only done one or two solicitations under that.
Yeah, we've done 2 rounds of the RAMP program, and we have a third one scheduled. We're looking probably around a fall timeframe for the next iteration of the RAMP program. The hope is to try to make it an annual program as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I forget, but I think the EPIC program, at some point you have to get legislative reauthorization of that. At least that's my recollection of it. How's it being viewed over at the Capitol? Are you getting a lot of positive response over there, and people are pretty secure about reauthorizing the program?
Yeah, we are. We've had a really good positive response from the legislature. One of the things with the EPIC program is our reauthorization actually goes through the Public Utilities Commission. And so we went through that process last year. The CPUC reauthorized the program for an additional 10 years. So from 2021 to 2030. So we're going forward under that. There's still some specific questions the CPUC is considering and kind of maybe retooling certain aspects of the program, specifically the role of the utilities. But the program will have funding at least through 2025. At that point, the CPUC will just make sure that the program is still providing benefits, but it does have continued funding all the way to 2030.
Oh, great. Well, one of the tough areas to get participation and to deploy technologies is renters. And it's tough because renters by their nature move around a lot. It's kind of hard to see what you put on buildings there as being smoothly transition from one to another. But we've got some people in our community that are looking at portable devices that can go with the renter to their new location, but also it's sort of a financial technology play. If you could buy into a community solar program or a community storage program or other things like that, what's been the response so far on comments you've gotten back in trying to do more with the renter section of the consumer demand?
I think just going back to a few years ago, there was a report called the SB 350 Barrier Study that the commission authored that really delved into some of the challenges with renters. And I think part of that was around low-income communities. There's definitely been a strong push to try to figure this out. Part of it's going to be a business model innovation aspect. I think part of it's going to need some policies and some rebate programs. The CPUC has a community solar program. And then I think part of it, we're going to need some better technologies. I think on the R&D side, I think we mostly focused on the technologies. We did have some projects that were really trying to develop more standardized packages for retrofitting multifamily homes. And the hope was that if you can kind of standardize those packages, you have better, more consistent ROIs. Maybe you make these types of retrofits more bankable. I think we're still kind of early in those projects. I don't know if we have all the results. I mean, a couple areas where we're seeing look pretty promising have been around kind of miniaturized electric heat pumps. There's a couple of companies we have that have gotten CalSeed and future funding, even RAMP funding. They're developing kind of these electric heat pumps that sit on the windowsill. They're, aesthetically pleasing to look like. They don't look like, kind of the picture of the East Coast, AC conditioners that take up your whole window. So you still have access to a window. They have performance on par, if not better than mini split heat pumps. And I think most importantly, one of the big challenges with electric heat pumps is, does it require panel upgrades, which becomes really expensive. And so at least with both of these systems, it can plug into a 120 volt outlet. And it's something that a renter can buy and take with them if they move. It doesn't require professional installation. It's something that can be kind of a direct to customer ship, and they can, the customer in an hour or so can install these systems on their own. So, that's one area we see is promising. I think the other area we're really trying to push on is around the building envelope space. It's challenging. There's been a couple of different approaches. We're piloting one with the Rocky Mountain Institute that's been used in parts of Europe, where they have this panelized approach that instead of going through the interior buildings, it's just this panelized approach that goes over the exterior buildings. And we featured it in our recent annual report. I can't remember all the specifics on it, but they can really reduce installation time to a week or so, as opposed to what's typically a pretty long time frame. It's pretty disruptive to tenants under conventional approaches. So big challenge. It's one, I think all the CPUC, CEC, everyone's very interested in trying to address, but it's a tough one. I also know, but yeah.
Where would someone be able to, let's say they have a solution that they're passionate about and they think can really have some application there. Where's a good place for them to kind of, I guess, learn more about how the CEC evaluates technologies that impact multi-unit dwellings, or at least advocate for them looking at evaluating it a different way?
Yeah, so I think probably the best place to start, and there's a few touch points where that can happen. I think one is through our Epic 4 process. And I have the link there. And so, we're having a series of workshops where people can provide comments in person, but there's also what we call our docket, where people can submit written comments, and we accept that anytime up to a given certain date. I think one of the things we always try to communicate, it's you can give us your technology, but I think what we're mostly interested in is what challenges does it solve that current technologies don't, or what's the need? Because when we issue a competitive solicitation, we don't do it with one technology in mind. I think we really try to identify existing challenges with current technologies, that are really impeding the ability of better solutions to have better traction in the market.
And I'll say that, as someone who subscribes to too many of the listservs, there is a lot of comments that people put in there. So if you do have, a technology or an idea and you want to put a comment in on them, I suggest you do it, because they do get sent out to everyone and everyone sees it. And it's a great way to at least get a conversation started about what you're working on.
Yeah, and one of the things, we do consider every comment that we get. In fact, we actually summarize and respond to all the comments that we get as part of an investment plan process.
So thinking more about CalSeed, usually the solicitations for CalSeed Phase 1 come out in the spring, and they haven't come out this year. Some of it, you change sort of what are the target technologies that you want to see in the solicitation each year. Do you have any insight onto when we might see the CalSeed solicitation for this year come out?
I don't at this point, Gary. I think at the latest, typically we release it around the February timeframe. So that would probably be the latest. I think it just depends on kind of the bandwidth of the CalSeed staff, and if they're able to get something up prior to then.
Okay.
We try to time it because in addition to kind of the first $150,000, if a awardee gets that, they're eligible for this kind of plus up $450,000. Right. And so we've always tried to get the timing so that someone would be able to apply for that 450. Also, it's just a little bit of a bandwidth trying to do both at the same time. So
sure,
some of the challenges in trying to get it out, but yeah.
Appreciate that. All right, other questions? from the
I see.
audience?
Can you double CalC? Do it every 6 months instead of every year. Let's make that happen.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can see the value in doing that, but it's, you know, part of the challenge is just staffing issues, and not so part on the staff running the program. It's more getting all the tech reviewers that we need to evaluate, which, you know, sometimes is over 200 to 300 proposals.
So
Right.
I have another question of, so
Mhm.
last year, the CEC was going to be getting, I believe, a fund for developing clean tech projects, a kind of a bank for providing loan and fiscal support for clean tech projects. And it got, with COVID and everything, it got, I guess, delayed, canceled, or readjusted. Is there any talk about something coming back with like that with the new, well, with our surplus that we have in California? With, you know, is there talk of having a bank to help finance clean tech projects in California?
Yeah, there's been some discussions. I don't quite know all the specifics, but it's not being housed in, or not being led by the CEC. It's being led by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. I know they were going through some budget hearings to try to get authority for that program. I'm not quite sure what the status of it was, but there was some there has been some talk of that program. I know. So Dan Adler, he spoke at our Ag Tech Virtual Innovation Tour on that program, because I think the initial piece of it's going to have a very Ag Tech focus to it.
All
So
right,
I'd encourage those interested in that, maybe go back to on our website, go back to that Virtual Innovation Tour and hear his presentation.
All right. Well, this is always a hot topic with our community, Eric. We really appreciate you joining us and giving us an update as to what's going on. It's very encouraging that the programs are going to continue. They're going to expand, and you're willing to take a lot of input on that. And hopefully, people who have more specific questions or suggestions, please take advantage of submitting things in writing or participating in the workshops that we've got the link to that occurring over the next few months. So round of applause for Erik. Great presentation. Really appreciate the opportunity with you, and great to have you back with us, Erik. So I'll turn it back to Thomas.
All right. So thank you again. I want to thank all of you for attending. Make sure you connect with us via email, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, where we'll have an edited version of this up later, Instagram, which I'm told we have and we do things on. Also, we put out regular blogs, and always look at Empower Innovation for ways to connect to the California ecosystem. Join us at our next upcoming perspectives with Lloyd Lobo and Mark Trexler, always at 9 a.m. I look forward to seeing you all in the future. And I thank you to our overall program sponsors, Hacker Lab, which is normally where I'm located when you see me with a mask, but right now I'm in Kauai. It's really hard on me. And I just wanted to let you know that. Momentum, Reverent, and GT Law, supporting clean tech accelerating in the greater California area, and our community of partners. Thank you from CleanStart, myself, Thomas Hall, Executive Director, and Gary Simon. And again, thank you to our guest, Erik Stokes, for attending this. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.